Like David Croft, Nicky got replaced too.
Boogie's in, you're out, Nicky. USF1, we're back with another episode, but you might notice Cookie is here. Got me a special guest host today.
Boogie's here.
Boogie. Nicky, he's not fired. He's temporarily suspended.
Super secret double suspension.
Yeah, we'll get into that in another show. I'll let him explain himself.
If we told him he couldn't pronounce Signs' last name, that he was going to be on suspension. So, you know.
He had the 3 strike and he had about 30 strikes. He kept saying Sains. He knows it's Signs. We'll see if he does it correct in the next show. But Boogs, let's get right into Imola.
Imola.
Did you enjoy the race?
I did. And I know you guys talked about last week how it had the potential to be a boring race.
Yep.
And I think that it ended up being a very exciting first lap.
Yes.
You know, couple safety cars, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last 10 laps were actually really exciting because of the difference between tire deltas.
I was pleasantly surprised. I thought we were in for circa Singapore 2.0, maybe a Monaco typically boring race. But no, it was very exciting. I thought, let's get right into a surprise. This is the kind of track you qualify first, you win. Mm-hmm. Oscar qualifies first.
He does not win. He does not win.
He doesn't even finish second. He finishes third, but that was kind of some later antics. But Max?
Do you know why he doesn't win?
Tell me.
Because Max is awesome.
Max is awesome.
Max is awesome.
He came in so aggressive into that second turn, and it's that classic, you hit the brakes first, I'm not going to. It's almost like Max has nothing to live for. He's like, I'm going to win. I'm either going into that wall or I'm passing you here. And once he was out in front.
It's because he's a generational talent. And generational talents know if you give him an inch, he'll put his whole car there.
Yeah.
And I think Max, I don't want to downplay Max because he did an awesome job. He saw that window. He forced his car in there legally, stayed on the track, made the pass, and that was the race. But part of that is also Oscar's fault. He should have done better to block him.
I was going to ask you that. Do you think someone like Max has so much respect by all the other racers? Do you think that they give him that little extra window, like a Michael Jordan or a LeBron James, where they should block him a little more? Do you think Oscar, if it was someone else, would Oscar have done a better job blocking, or is that just Oscar's not a great blocker?
No, I think Oscar was anticipating Lando come up behind him. So he wasn't blocking 100% because, one, I think Oscar believes he is a better driver than Lando.
Okay.
Lando historically does not have good turn 1 starts.
Okay.
And I don't think he was expecting that to be Max. And Max is going to take advantage of a smaller space than Lando would have. Plus, you have Lando and Oscar fighting, they're on the same team. They're not going to race each other hard. And I think Max took advantage of that, and I don't think Oscar was prepared for it. And shame on Oscar. He should have been prepared for it.
I like that argument. So if say Lando qualified 6th, and it's Oscar, Max, and anyone else, do you think Oscar is more aggressive and blocks, knowing that he's not going to clip his own teammate and cause a McLaren chaos?
Yes,
okay.
100%.
So I think just how it turned out. He's protective of Norris, and Verstappen took advantage. That's great strategy, and the man, like you said, he's the GOAT.
Yeah.
Other surprises on here, I think Lewis Hamilton coming up from out. He was out in Q2. I think he qualified 11th or 12th. I can't remember with Ferrari. They were 11, 12, all the way up to 4.
So I'm not normally on camera. And you guys all year have been on the Ferrari bandwagon, and you guys love Ferrari. I hate a Ferrari. I am not a Ferrari guy. I quit being a Ferrari guy when they pissed away the championship for like 3 years in a row because they couldn't get their stuff together. So I don't have a lot of love for Ferrari. I have a lot of love for Williams, so I was very excited to see Albon up there in 5. And good for Lewis. He's great. He's awesome. You guys love him, but it's Ferrari. They'll screw it up.
7-time champion. He's an older guy. He's with a new team. He qualifies low, and then he goes in 4th. Now the reason you don't like Ferrari is because they kicked your boy Sainz off the team. Be honest with it. You love Sainz. He loves Sainz probably more than Nicky loves Norris. Not as much as I love Nico Hulkenberg, though.
It's close. It's close. I love
things
I love
that I
Carlos.
would do with Nico that you wouldn't do with Carlos. I'm just going to say that. Other ones in here, Russell, normally the third place guy. Finishes 7th.
That's on us. Commentator curse.
Yep.
We branded him 3PG.
3PG, third place George.
And ever since we did that, and now he's had a bad race. So
I know.
that was Nicky's fault for going, hey, producer, put it up here.
Yeah.
And then I listened to him and I put it up there. So we cursed him. So, George, we are sorry, but we're not going to stop calling you PG3.
3PG, baby. And then Isaac Hajar, my boy. Mm-hmm. Kimi Antonelli's been the rookie that's been showing up. Obviously, he was a DNF this week. Hajar in 9th, I like that. And Yuki in 10th is, to me, a little bit of fake news because he's chaos out there. Yeah,
and I'm not a huge Yuki fan. I don't dislike him like I dislike, Lance Stroll, But
fair.
To be fair to Yuki, considering what happened to him in qualifying and where he started this race on pit lane, to get back to 10th was an impressive run.
Yes.
That being said, once again, he's contributing 1 point to Team Verstappen. And that's not good enough for Red Bull. And with all the drama that's going on with Christian Horner right now, possibly being replaced or being pushed out, you need Yuki to do better than 10th place. And he's been getting points, but he's been getting a single point in these races. And that's just not good enough. He's got to do better.
I mean, Perez could have done that. Perez was doing that last year. So the goal was, you have the best racer in the world, Max Verstappen, and your boss is debating they're maybe getting fired because you're number 2 between Lawson and Yuki. And whoever's going to fill in Perez, they can't do it. So let's get into where we now stand.
Well,
this is the grid. Sorry.
We started.
So we're getting into the grid qualifying, and we had mentioned this prior. Piastri first, Verstappen second, made that pass. Yeah. Russell started in third.
You
figure he's going to stay there.
So maybe it wasn't a commentator curse.
I think it was, because when he doesn't typically change. He qualifies third, finishes third. We thought it was going to be the same thing. Alonso and Stroll was a big surprise to me.
Yeah, Alonso being up in 5th was kind of a surprise, and I really had some hopes because as much as I hate Stroll, I do like Alonso. And I wanted him to get some points. I know you guys are doing
We're hard on Aston Martin.
Race to the bottom. But I like Alonso, and I wanted to see him, maybe get some points and maybe do some good this weekend. And gosh, those Aston Martin cars are living up to their name.
I enjoyed the fact that they qualified in the top 10, made it to Q3, and both were out of the points by the end of the race.
Surprisingly, though, Albon starting behind Carlos and ends up doing better than him in the finish. So
I know, and that's your boy.
Good on the Williams.
Williams, both in the points again. I mean, they're solid in that 5th in the Constructors' Cup.
When you see us out in Vegas, I might be wearing a Williams shirt this year.
Definitely be wearing Williams. Speaking of Yuki and his complete chaos.
Oh my gosh.
Did you think there was a serious injury when this happened in qualifying?
I did not think there was a serious injury because the way that the halo system is and these cars are built, it's very hard. It's not impossible, but it's very hard to now get injured in these cars. Safety is such a high priority, and with what they do to make sure that the drivers are safe in these cars, it looked bad. But when the cars yard sale themselves, that's actually better for the driver because the car is taking that kinetic energy and dispersing it as it's falling apart. So the worse the crash looks, the safer the driver is. It's the times when the car hits the wall and there looks like there's no damage because then all that energy is transferred into the driver, and then that's when people get hurt.
Circuit, Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah, I was going to say, ask our NASCAR friends.
Number 3. Yeah, that car was mutilated. Technology just for the safety is one thing, but the technology to get that thing ready within a day to race. Now, granted, he had to start in pit lane. I get that because they probably had to change enough components that he wasn't going to qualify to where he finished. But I mean, that's these guys.
Yeah, the track, the mechanics out at the track. I mean, it's amazing how fast they can, and that goes for all racing.
Yeah.
Because if you ever watch like drag racing, they rebuild that entire engine between runs.
It's unbelievable.
Like every time. So, I mean, the professionals that work in racing, not just the drivers are amazing, but it's everybody. The pit crew, the mechanics, the engineers, these are the people that are at the pinnacle of their careers. And it shows because when you take a car that, was destroyed like that, and it took all night and, they probably, missed breakfast, but they got it out there.
They weren't happy about it.
And, for their hard work, they got a point for the team.
Exactly. That can almost go on the team more than Yuki.
Yeah.
I mean, he did have to go from 20th to 10th, but even to get out there,
Yeah.
For him to get out there and get a chance to get a point for the team, I mean, that's got to be a
I'm
celebration.
awarding the mechanics. They earned that point.
1
for
point, Red Bull Mechanics.
Good job, guys. Good job.
Now, there was some good radio stuff.
Yes. Oh, I'm all about the radio stuff now. This radio stuff is awesome.
We'll get in a little bit later in the show. We'll get into some turmoil with Leclerc, and there's been a lot of Ferrari. Hamilton's been bitching on the radio, but this just shows how close this sport is. I mean, they all know. Every one of them is on the edge of a wreck, on the edge of disaster, on every turn. The speeds that they're going. Lawson, Piastri, Verstappen are just a couple that we picked here. They're like, "Hey, is he okay? I just saw that on the video. Is he okay?" And the team reports back, "Yep, he's okay. He's out of the car. He's fine." I love that. Now, I love rivalries. We love ice hockey. I love it when you're bitter and you're just coming to just destroy on the ice and on the track. But to show that these guys, they fly together. They have dinners together. Outside the track, they're all just dudes that are, they're like you said, it's the pinnacle. They're the elite of this sport. So they're supporting each other. Sure, they probably don't like certain guys, but they care.
Yeah.
They don't want somebody to get hurt.
Well, you don't want to, I mean, other than we had to change what Lawson said, because I think his original message was, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. He's like, "Hey, if he's dead, do I get that spot back?"
What's he doing to my car?
Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, no, there is a brotherhood with these drivers, and because nobody understands what you're going through except for your fellow drivers.
Right.
So yeah, you can get mad at people, and we've seen it earlier in this year, right, with Lando and Max, and they're fighting. They're still best friends.
Yeah.
They're still best
Lando
friends.
hops on Max's jet, and they fly together to every race.
Yeah, so it's just in the heat of the moment, where you're competing. These guys are uber competitive, even the guys that are finishing 19th and 20th, they're still uber competitive.
Yeah.
You don't get to this level unless you're really, really good and really competitive, unless your dad owns a team.
He had to throw another dig at old Lancey Stroll. There was more chaos.
Yes.
Nicky wasn't the only one. Franco Colapinto.
Yes, which doing an awesome job keeping that car in one piece.
Now, that was during the race, right? Or was that qualifying as well?
That was qualifying.
Okay.
That was qualifying.
Okay, so they were able to put that together and actually utilize all the components.
They did not get penalized.
They didn't have to go into
start
pit lane.
on the pit lane.
Yep. So, I mean, that's a huge, it's almost like lucky what you're going to damage. Because obviously we know.
Well, if you get a power unit
Right.
or, transmission, something like that you have to replace, then you're going to have to start on pit lane. But if it's arrows, it's tires,
And that's what it looks like. A little bit of body work, obviously, tires, some axle work.
But the real issue with this is Colapinto has that seat because Duhan kept crashing. And he did his 6 races that was in his contract. Well, Colapinto only has 5 races on his contract. So this is a trend that he has to avoid, because if he ends up having similar issues that Duhan did, he's going to get pulled out of the seat. And I know Nicky's a big Colapinto fan,
He is.
but he's only got 5 races, and if he's going to be wrecking and he doesn't get points, he won't be in that seat.
I mean, and he's a rookie, so you're like, do we give him a grace? But it doesn't matter. You're in Formula One. They expect results. And you're on Alpine, which doesn't, like I've said before, Gasly never damages his car. Last year he had $0 in damage, first time ever in Formula One. They don't expect their second car to constantly be getting repaired. The money they're putting that, and if you're not getting into the points and you're costing money to repair, that team's going backwards.
Yeah, and they're not going to probably finish very high in the Constructors' Cup this year.
No.
So they're not going to be getting a big bonus, and this just cuts into that budget if you're repairing the car all the time.
Yeah, and
so,
next year's a brand new car. They need all the budget they can have to design that new car. Did you think...
Poor Ollie. Poor Ollie.
Did
I
you
feel
think,
bad for this kid.
Okay, I guess you're going to probably already answer my question. My question is, what he said there, is he bitching too much? Is he crying? Or is what he's saying legit? During qualifying, just to rewind it, this was in Q1. Q1.
Yeah.
He finished his lap, and it would have been a fast enough time to move on to Q2.
Yeah.
But that was when, was that when Yuki wrecked?
I believe that was Yuki's wreck.
Yuki wrecks, says a red flag.
Red flag.
He's claiming that it's totally unfair. I feel like, he feels like he passed the finish line before the red flag came out on his computer. He didn't see it yet. FIA comes by and says, nope, lap canceled, whatever you had before.
But it's a simple fix because I understand the rule is when the FIA throws a red flag, that lap is now thrown out. It stops. So red flag comes out, you're done. You can't finish if you're 10 feet from the finish line. It doesn't matter. Number one, scoring tower should have let him cross the line and should not have been a big deal because holding off that red flag for literally less than a second
it was right. Bang,
would
bang.
not have made a difference. That's on scoring. They shouldn't have done that. But the FIA has access to all the cameras. They could have gone to the halo view or the driver view, all those cameras, and they could have seen exactly when the red light came up on the dashboard because that's how they know that there's a red flag is they get an indicator
The driver, right?
on their dash or on their steering wheel rather than
Right.
their dashboard. Because if you're in a section where you can't see a corner worker station or you can't see the flags,
Right.
you still need to know because red flag is you shut it down because they need to do emergency and they need to get the emergency crews out there
Right.
to that accident
And
as
it's
quick
safety. I
as
get
possible.
the
Yeah,
safety.
it's a safety. But I think scoring tower, when you're up there, or actually that would have been the race director because the race director should have been aware that he had a car coming in on the lap and that he was feet away from crossing the finish line. They should have gave him that literal second or two to complete that lap, then thrown the red flag. And I understand it's safety and all that, but I think that is the race director. I think if he had that back, he probably would have.
I'm going to read Behrman's quote, and then I'm going to ask you a question after it. So he said, I believe it's totally unfair to have it deleted. I feel like once they make a decision, meaning the FIA, even if it's wrong, even if it's clearly wrong, they're not going to turn back on it. So he's throwing a shot at the FIA. We've thrown many shots at salami, as we call him.
Yeah.
Do you think it's time to have a turnover and a new FIA
Absolutely.
president that's going to be not necessarily more lenient, but more logical? You're going to make decisions that aren't so brass, like he's saying, that if they make a decision that's final, it's like having a strict father that can't see past his own thoughts. And there's someone that might be in the running for the new FIA president. Mr. Sainz Sr., Carlos's father, considering running for FIA, would you think this is a good move?
See, I'm torn because I think absolutely we need a new president for the FIA. I think the FIA has been going in the wrong direction for the last couple of years. They have done some good, but I think they've done good on accident, and they've done more bad than they've done good. And this isn't just, bring back the fastest lap. There's,
Which I hate that they got rid of that. It's the worst.
They fumbled and they've made a lot of mistakes. I'm torn because I think Sainz Sr. would be really good at it, but who I was kind of backing was Toto Wolff's wife, who was also considering making a run for it. So now I'm torn between who. Not that I have a vote. We don't have a vote. No. Our opinion doesn't matter whatsoever, other than a moral support. Close. But I think I don't think it's going to be hard to find a better president than the one we have.
Okay, so I think we're all in agreement. I think a lot of people that watch Formula One agree we need a new president. Yeah. So maybe we just have an election between your boyfriend's father, Carlos Sainz Sr., and Toto Wolff's wife. I think that's. Now we're getting back to like Donald Trump and a Hillary Clinton election here.
The only problem with these two candidates are both of them have connections with teams.
True.
So obviously, being the spouse or the partner of a team principal, although every single team came out and said we believe that she is above board and there would be no issues whatsoever. And now you have the father of a racer. Is there going to be conflicts? I don't think there would. Carlos Jr. actually commented on it and said, yeah, he's my dad, but, we're adults, we're professionals. Yeah. He's not going to, give William special, consideration just because he's my dad, So I don't think that there would be any conflict. So I don't think that should be an argument with either candidate.
It's almost like being, like I coach my son in soccer. Yeah. I'm harder on him than anyone. Mm-hmm. So if it's anything like that, granted, this is a lot of money involved here, so maybe he's even harder on Williams just to prove that there's no collusion. Plus, they're going to have to sign all the documentation, and if they violate it, they're going to get fired anyhow. So
well, that and the FIA president, he's not a steward. The stewards are making the calls on that. The race director is in charge on the day of the race, so it's not like the FIA president's coming in to the race director and being like, oh, put my son up in second place. You know,
right.
There's so many levels of other people that are involved in this that you can't mess too much. I mean, he's looking at overall broad pictures. Where is our sport heading? Not what are the penalties that are coming in. You know, it's not like that.
Enough about the drama. Let's get back into the race because
this is the drama right here.
This was insane drama.
Awesome.
We were watching it at, I'm not sure where you watched it, but Nick and I were at the camper. And, you know, we're wiping the boogers out of our eyes in the morning. It's 9 a.m. Eastern time. And you're just expecting a boring race.
Yeah.
And for that
Let me get out of the way to show the money shot there.
Yeah.
Right
that
there.
Immediate start. And then on that second turn, just to be so aggressive, when we alluded to that earlier. And, God, he was so aggressive. You know, Oscar hits on the brakes early. And Max says, I'm not scared.
Yeah.
I'm not scared. I'll get on the brakes when I need to get on the brakes. And it's not like he went off track limits to pass him. He held it tight, made that corner, and that was it.
I'm not gonna lie. When this happened, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be a boring race." The most exciting thing happened in turn 2, and this is gonna be a boring race. So luckily, there was some other drama to keep it interesting. But this was your race. Your race was decided by the second lap, or the second turn in the first lap.
Yeah.
You know.
And then it was Max's 400th race. So the radio, you know, the team's congratulating. Wow, 400th race. You're brilliant. I mean, they're just stroking his ego, but he deserves it.
Yeah.
I mean, you are the man. And Max throws out his credit to everyone. Great execution, fantastic all the way around. So
good on him. Good on Max. He's not gone yet.
No.
You know. So
he wants more. He wants to beat Lewis's. He wants more than 7.
Yeah. Although, is he going to do it with Red Bull? I have my thoughts on that.
I think he'll do it. I do. I think he'll float teams if he has to. But I mean, we talk about Max all the time. Let's talk about what we were just talking about. The Williams boys. Your buddies. Sainz coming from Ferrari, doing it well, and Albon, to me, the surprise of the season, both in the points. Again. Albon's been in the points 7 out of 8 races, finished 5th 3 times. He's outperforming Sainz. Sainz is starting to gain on him, but I mean, is there any argument that Albon's the surprise of the season?
He's I don't know if I would call him the surprise of the season. I think he's finally come into form.
Okay.
You know,
that's even more. You're giving him more credit than I am. I'm saying it like it shouldn't have happened.
And last year, I'm drawing a blank. The team principal for Williams said that they were going to James Volt, that they were going to break everything. You know, so last year they went, we're bad. We are not a good team. We are not a good car. So why are we going to keep trying to do things the way that we've been doing them?
Yeah.
We're going to take chances. We're going to try something new every single weekend.
Some upgrades in there.
And this is the payoff. But I mean, they were trying new strategies.
Yeah.
They were everything was on the table to try something new. And I think this is the payoff because Williams, I mean, we talked last year about McLaren having such a huge turnaround where they went from being dead in the back of the constructors to winning the constructors, and what a turnaround that was. I think this is another one of those, a very similar situation where Williams, I mean, they were dead on arrival for the last several years. So much so that the founder's daughter got replaced. She's not there anymore. You know, they moved on from her, and now they've turned around. So I think they have a really good team. They have some really good drivers, and I think there's a reason that they kept Alex, because he was not a bad driver.
No.
You know, he was in a bad situation. And I think now that they've finally started to put some of the pieces together, and having Carlos there, because he's actually like half engineer. You know, that's why he said in the beginning of the year, I need 5 races to kind of figure this car out, because he's got such an engineering mind. And I think that they're helping each other. And I think the chemistry between these two is really good. And the chemistry in the team's really good. And I'm impressed with how they're turning around.
Yeah, I would say Sainz kind of mentality for racing is like Bryson DeChambeau in golf. They just deconstruct it, and they're almost creating new ways to do it and think and see. Like you said, Williams was, other than Kick Sauber, they were just the garbage last year. They're going to finish 5th this year. They're pretty much locked in there. And then they can just propel that, and maybe they're a top 3 team next year. I think that's a lofty goal.
I think being best of the rest for where they've been the last decade is a huge improvement.
And they're above best of the rest, because Aston Martin's supposed to be 5th. So they're the lowest of the top, I guess, but truly the best of the rest.
Yeah. So good on them. Good Williams.
I like it.
Keep going.
Moving on. We talked about this. Ferrari qualifies 11, 12. You're dogging on Ferrari. Specifically, Hamilton 12th to 4th.
Yep.
And he's been bitching on the radio, other than the sprint races that he's been performing decent at, winning one. He was in a good mood. He was in a good mood on the radio. He moved from 12th to 4th.
Fantastic race. Thanks for letting me get those new tires and keeping Leclerc on the old tires. That was a great strategy, Ferrari.
And let's get right into that. So Hamilton's happy. Leclerc, a little unlucky. His one comment, this is unbelievable. All the time I get beep with these virtual safety cars, which is true, and that's unlucky.
It's not the first time that that's happened.
It's going to happen to anybody. You're going to box, and then there's a safety car right after it. Everyone gets a free tire, and you're like, well, I don't even need tires. I just got them, and I lost spots. That happens. But yeah, like you said, losing those positions, and then it seemed like, did you feel like Ferrari was favoring Hamilton with the tires, or was it just how the race played out?
So they didn't want Leclerc to come in because they didn't want to give up track spots. So I think that they gambled, and I know that they're not supposed to have a number one driver over there. I think Leclerc's still their number one driver, but when you have Lewis Hamilton there, you can't make him a number two. So I think they're similar to McLaren, where they got two number one drivers. But I think that they have very different race strategies for both of those drivers. And I think that's more of what came into play this week was the race strategies. And if we can leave Leclerc out there, keep those track position, and hopefully he can hold on. Because let's not forget, Leclerc won a race last year by staying out on old tires and drove those tires into the ground and won a GP last year because he was the tire whisperer. So I think they go, well, let's keep him out there. Maybe he can do that magic again this year, squeak out maybe a podium or at least a top four finish, and we'll gamble on Hamilton and give him new tires, and maybe we can steal a double podium, or maybe we can at least steal fourth and fifth. And they weren't that far off.
No.
So, but it's got to be frustrating for Leclerc, and I think he's got a lot of pressure because we're going to his home track next week, and he finally broke the Monaco curse last year. And I think he wants to have a lot of momentum going into this next week. And I don't know if he got it.
I think they just need to communicate more. I think, like you said, there's different strategies for both. But obviously they're having team meetings. They have to be agreeing with these strategies. And maybe they're boosting Leclerc's ego saying, you're great on these tires. You make them last longer. So that goes to his head. But when the time comes and Hamilton gets the tires and you don't, and they're hoping you can make them last and you don't, then you're mad. I mean, you can't have it both ways.
I think, honestly, if you went to Leclerc in his post-race, debriefing, he probably wants the passion of fighting so hard to hold on to that space and not really having the tires to challenge any of the cars in front of him. I think that when he comes back and he looks at the data and he talks to his engineer, he's going to go, you know what, our only chance, if he would have pitted, he would have fallen too far back, and then he would have
That's what they were saying.
Fight. Yeah.
He said, what do we do? And he said, well, we box now, we lose 4 positions.
Yeah, so I mean, when you're competing and you're out there and your tires are not as good as the cars in front of you, and you want to win that race, you want to get on the podium and do the best you can, you're not thinking, I'm going to lose these 4 races. Well, I'll get it back. I'll get it back.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have got it.
You can do anything out there, but yeah.
Because the cars behind him had fresh tires too.
They know the math.
Yeah.
The guys, you have to trust the guys in there. They know the math. The engineers are there.
I don't want to say that this is a whole lot of nothing, but I think that even Leclerc in his post-race debrief would probably admit that this was probably the better strategy.
I just love it that every week between Leclerc and Hamilton, typically Hamilton, we got good radio. We got fun stuff to see on the radio. So enough about Ferrari. Moving on, Antonelli.
Oh,
he's already the rookie of the year. Unless he has a terrible second half of the season so far.
He's not going to.
He's cemented it in. Hajar would have to have a great second half. But unlucky here.
Yeah.
Unlucky. This was the only actual safety car. So we had that virtual one early on, and then this was the only one. And this is when I thought maybe because Max was way ahead and this tightened it back up, I thought there was a chance, but Max still kept the lead. But yeah, Antonelli, it was a tough DNF because it was nothing he did.
Yeah.
He said there's something wrong with the car, pulls into the grass all slowly and safely, but they had to have the safety car because the damn crane had to come out and lift him on out.
Well, the worst part about this and why I feel so bad for Antonelli is because Mercedes actually brought his classmates out to this race. So he was in front of all of his classmates, and they were having a great weekend, and then poor kid didn't finish.
I mean, he's in Italy. He's in his home country. You want him to do better. It's not his fault, but honestly, his classmates, they were probably shit-faced. They probably didn't know what was going on.
They were not, because they're not old enough to drink.
Oh, well, no, in Europe they are. European countries, some are 16. I don't know if Italy's 18, but they're regardless.
Well, I feel bad for Antonelli. He will bounce back.
Yeah.
As much as Nicky likes Antonelli, I was first. I was Antonelli fan. So if you go back and you watch our preseason predictions, I had Antonelli finishing in the top 10. And you guys were making fun of me because he was a rookie. He wasn't going to do that good. And I said, you guys were crazy. His last name is Antonelli. This kid is going to be good.
He's a child.
He's going to be good.
He is a stud. And I only dogged on him because I was on the Hajar train, so I'm trying to stick with that. So I don't hate on this guy. I love this kid. But I'm still going to stick on the Hajar train.
Oh, real quick before we get off of this, did you see the article that Toto Wolff had bought him a new car? He gifted him a car. So he got a Mercedes, a nice blue Mercedes. What was it, the SLK or something like that? But it's the really high-end Mercedes. You know what the funny thing is in Italy, if you haven't had your driver's license for 3 years, that car is actually too big, too powerful to be driven by somebody who hasn't had their license for 3 years. So Toto Wolff gave him a present that he can't actually use. So this car is going to sit in his garage, and he has to go down every morning, walk past his brand new, beautiful blue Mercedes, and then go get in his shit box because he's not allowed to drive it because he hasn't had his license long enough.
It's all license rule and age when he's one of the greatest 20 drivers in the world, and they're like, but based on your age, buddy, we don't trust you on the road. And that
backhanded gift by Toto. Toto didn't even bother to show up this week.
I was going to say, speaking of Toto Wolff, it was a good thing he wasn't there. He wasn't there to see Antonelli do this, and maybe that's why it happened to Antonelli. He didn't have the luck of his boss there. Why was Toto Wolff not at this race? Was he ill?
He might have been ill because of the check he had to write, but he actually was attending his son's college graduation here in the States.
Oh, that's cool.
And I did not get invited.
That is cool. I think that there's priorities in life, and his son graduates, as they call it, is in university. He graduates, and he's there to see it. Now, I personally don't do stuff like that. When the Super Bowl came around about 14 years ago, I went to Dallas and I missed the birth of my first son, and I'm not even a superstar or celebrity. So that just shows how big of a piece of shit I am and how good of a dude Toto Wolff is.
Well, you're a piece of shit because you're a Steelers fan.
That's fair, I guess. Now, this next segment, final segment, is our picks.
Yes.
We do the picks every week. Now,
you'll have to help me out with this a little
bit. We
bit.
already have Nicky's picks. Now, this isn't what Boogie necessarily agrees with. This is the picks that Nicky made.
His picks are horrible. Picks are horrible.
He made these picks with the anticipation that he was going to be here. And like we said, he's on suspension for mispronouncing Carlos Sainz's name enough times. So if I remember correctly, and I'll help you out with this, Nicky has Colapinto.
Probably finishing in the points, I would imagine.
He has Colapinto finishing in... You know what? This was from this race. This isn't a prediction next race. This was Colapinto finishing in the points.
This is the results from...
Yes. He had Colapinto finishing in the points. He had Antonelli on the podium. Yeah.
Missed it by that much.
And then he had Ferrari, one of the Ferrari drivers, in the top 4.
Now, see, that would have been that's the pick that I'm like, that's really bold.
Especially, now this was before qualifying, but once they qualified 11, 12, you're like, well, that one's out.
Yeah.
Turns out that's
the only one we got right.
It's the only one. Colapinto's out of the points.
Yeah.
Obviously, Antonelli's not on the podium because he was a DNF. Hamilton comes and saves the day and finishes 4th on the dot. So Nicky with 1 correct this week. Good job, buddy.
Well, there's something to be said about a squirrel that finds a nut.
Yeah, well, this is another squirrel that slipped on a nut because I had Colapinto out of the points. I just wanted to contradict Nicky.
Yeah.
I had Russell not on the podium, but specifically 3rd place because we have him as 3PG, 3rd place George. And then I had Ferrari. I said one of the 2 Ferrari drivers is going to be out of the points entirely. Again, after qualifying, I look like a genius. They were 11 and 12. Someone's going to be out. Maybe there's an issue. I only got 1 right. Ferrari, obviously, were both in the points. Russell did not finish 3rd. He finished 7th. But Colapinto was out of the points.
Maybe we need to change your guys' picks from race picks to qualifying picks because you guys nail this.
That's
in qualifying.
2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row, I've nailed qualifying, and it doesn't translate to the race, which is kind of great for someone like me who's newer into Formula One. that it's not just been how they qualify, it's how they finish. I like that there's been a qualifying and then there's a lot of movement, a lot of changes. It makes it exciting.
Yeah.
So let's get into the driver standings, where we are now after race 8.
Look at that. Max still staying in touch with the two.
You got Papaya, obviously Piastri. He's getting creeped on by Norris. Norris took that second spot, which Piastri was not excited about. Norris did say, my tires are better, I'm faster, let me in front. Piastri's like, even if I let you by, you're not going to pass him. Now you're just stealing points from me, which he did.
Well, do you think that – I think they let him race. I think, we've been talking about we've wanted to see the McLarens mix it up. Now, granted, Oscar's tires were shot. They were 14, 17 laps older than Lando's.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they said swap places. The only people that I believe actually gave a spot back was Leclerc when he gave it back to Albon because, they kind of forced him off and they were trying to avoid a penalty. Because if he'd have got a 5-second penalty, he would have finished way worse.
He would have lost a couple of spots. So, when that happened, the team was like, just give it back right now and try to fight him. He didn't get it back, but losing one spot as opposed to 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But I love this. So you have your top 3 are getting tighter. Piastri, 13 back is Norris, then 11 back for Verstappen. Then Russell's still hanging in there. He's only 25 back from Max. But then it's a huge drop-off from there. And your boy Lance Stroll still holding strong in 10.
I'm not even going to dignify that with a response. But I think that what we were wanting to see, I think we got a preview of it a little bit. I think that those laps I think that was a Norris and Piastri battle.
It was brief.
It was really brief, and it was difference in tires. But I think that's the beginning of what we're going to see more, because I don't think it was team orders to swap. I think he actually beat him.
We want to see them qualify 1-2, start the race with perfectly ready to go tires on the same tire and just race.
Yeah, Max wants to see that too, because they'll probably crash each other out and then he'll get another win.
Or they'll slow each other up enough to let him stay tight, and then he can work around the DRS zone. So, obviously you see the points. You can do a little bit of math and know that McLaren is we've been saying this for weeks now. They're running away. They've over doubled Max Verstappen, Team Verstappen, and they're nearly doubling Mercedes.
Yeah, so we're about the same point we were last year at this point, where it was Red Bull has got this sewn up. They're so far ahead of everybody else, because this was before who's the other guy that was even with Red Bull last year? I can't remember his name.
Sergio Perez.
What's he doing now? I think he's selling insurance.
Hey,
no, but before he fell
might
off,
be the driver of Cadillac next year.
I'm gonna have to. You know what, Sergio? We love you. We apologize for last year. Was all Nicky.
Cadillac is like going to be, Haas is an American team, but Cadillac is going to be us boys in America. We have to, that's our hometown favorite.
Yeah.
So if he's the boy, we have to turn that switch real quick and suddenly love Sergio Perez.
Sergio Perez.
Yeah.
So my point being is that McLaren's way out in front now, but I don't know if it's going to end up being a runaway, because we thought it was going to be a runaway last year with Red Bull, and look what happened when...
yeah, but McLaren has 2 racers that can consistently get on the podium.
Red Bull
just has, that was early on. That's true. Yeah. So who of McLaren is going to suddenly pull a Perez? I just don't see that out of Piastri
Yeah, I don't
and
think
Norris
that's going to happen.
with that car and those racers. And Mercedes is doing great, but 3PG can do it, Antonelli, but they're always in like 3rd and 6th, and that's not going to be enough when you're not getting high on the podium like McLaren always is.
All it takes is one team coming out with some really good upgrades, and McLaren coming out with some upgrades that push them in the wrong direction, and they start going backwards, and you get some double podiums by Ferrari or Mercedes. You're not going to get double podiums from Red Bull, but Mercedes could get a couple double podiums if they have some upgrades that come out and they do good, and McLaren takes a step back. We could see that. I don't think that's going to happen. If I had to put money on it, I think McLaren's going to win this far and away, and good for them.
Yeah. And Ferrari's hanging tight. Obviously, they're finishing 6, 7s. They got a 4 this week. Williams was kind of a surprise. I think they're going to lock into that 5, because if you look at not necessarily Haas, but 7 through 10, they haven't moved in weeks. They haven't gotten any points. Yeah. Aston Martin, the Baby Bulls, Alpine, Turd Sauber, they've been stuck at those points for the last few weeks. And you might get some shuffling there. All it takes is RB, maybe Lawson gets some points here or there, or Hajar does better and they can pass, as we hope, Aston Martin, and then maybe Gasly does something, and then we get Aston Martin down in a 9th. That would be joy. That'd be joy to the world.
I think where we're sitting now is very close to where we're going to end up.
Yeah.
I don't see Alpine doing a huge rush. That team, Gasly's good. Gasly is doing Gasly.
He's always had 11, 12, 13, just out of the points.
So you're going to need, like they had last year, you're going to need a rain race or something like that where it just totally, redefines the order. But
that's where Kick Sauber and Nico Hulkenberg, those veterans, do great in the rain. I'd like to see him get a couple more points here too. So, Boogie, it was great having you this week.
It's good being here.
It was exciting. Show went a little long.
Well, it's because I was here.
He's a long-winded fella. And I am too. Usually Nick stays quiet in the corner, so maybe we'll invite him back. We'll see if he can pronounce the names correctly. Until next time, love ya.